Welcome into Lions Game Plan Week 2. I'm Jacob Seus, once again joined by Mike Payton from A to Z Sports. And Mike and I this week are joining you live from Panic City, Michigan, after the Lions' Week 1 loss in Lambeau to the Packers. Not that they lost, Mike. The way that they lost, the way that they looked, the way that the Packers looked, the way social media has reacted the past few days since Week 1, you would think we're back in the 0-16 era. You would think the Lions maybe are going to win one or two more games the rest of the way. I mean, after one game, we are in full panic mode right now. Fire everybody, Mike.
Yeah, no, it is the sky has fallen, and I've been saying it all week. This is the most overreactions that I have seen from Lions fans and national media, and this is from a group that wanted Kellen Moore to start over Matthew Stafford. So I've seen crazy things. This week has been much crazier.
I saw on ESPN they were talking, is Dan Campbell the problem? And I know that at least 29 other teams throughout the NFL are saying, yes, Dan Campbell's the problem. Please fire him, let him go so we can line up and see how much money we can pay him. But, you know, in jokes aside, it wasn't a good game for the Lions. Well, you can start by talking about the offense because that's really been the hot topic of conversation. I mean, John Morton's first game, of course, is offensive coordinator, so the microscope was on him every single drive. It's not that the Packers defense completely shut the Lions down. I mean, the Lions got to the red zone 4 times. They were 1 for 4, which that's your ball game right there. But, Mike, what did you see out of the offense? What differences did you see from the Ben Johnson era, and why weren't they successful on Sunday?
Yeah, I think that they were trying to do something different, and they were trying to dial up deep shots. That was really what the Lions wanted to do. They worked on it all summer. They've had a lot of success with it. So they thought, well, hey, let's try it in the game. And the Packers were just ready for it. And the problem being that they didn't really have it felt as though they didn't have a backup plan to that. It was just check down, check down, check down. And that's why Jahmyr Gibbs walks out with 10 catches and 31 yards, because they just kept checking down to him over and over again, and because the deep pass wasn't there. And then on top of that, you get to the point where, well, now you're down 3 scores, and now you have to pass. And the Packers obviously know that you have to pass because you're trying to get chunk yardage. So they know that all they have to do is just guard the pass, and they're going to be just fine. And it just, everything just piled on top of each other. And then the interception at the end of the half by Jared Goff.
That was a killer.
That was huge. Defensively, the Lions came around, and the Lions could have won this game had they scored 2 more touchdowns. They probably could have won the game. It really is that simple. I know that, again, the jokes have been flying around. I know everybody thinks it's the end of the world, but this offense, it worked for the most part. They got behind. They had to simplify things, and when you're trying to climb out of a hole, it's hard to do that when you can only do one thing.
Yeah, the play calling felt pretty vanilla compared to what we've been used to seeing. Not that, I don't think anybody was expecting any Jameson Williams passes or anything super crazy, but, for Morton's first game, what did you see out of him? And now headed into week 2 here, going back home, it feels like, the microscope is even more on him than it was week 1, and the pressure is certainly dialed up a notch.
Yeah, I think that we didn't really get to see what it was that they were trying to do because, again, they were trying to make those deep passes work early, and then they had to go full conservative after that. You get behind so quickly and so fast that that's all you can do. You have to pass the ball, and everybody knows you're going to pass the ball, and you can't run to set up the pass, so you can't diversify what your offense is doing, and you just get stuck. It's like quicksand. You just get stuck, and no matter what you do, you can't shake out of it. There's no way to get out. And I think once we see Morton's offense in a more balanced way, and in a game that they're not behind super fast, that second Packers drive for the touchdown was 2 plays. It just happened so fast, and they just got so far behind, and the Lions had a 9-minute drive, and all they got out of it was a field goal. I just don't think we ever got a chance to see what this offense could be because they were just behind the 8 ball from the word go.
Yeah, and this time last week, Morton said one of the keys to that game was establishing the run game. And like you said, they were in a pass-first situation most of the game, but the run game really never got going. I think, 45, 46 yards, which when you look at Gibbs and Montgomery, I mean, that's atrocious compared to what you expect from them. The offensive line wasn't great. First game without Frank Ragnow. What do you see out of the offensive line now moving forward as they try and get any momentum here?
Yeah, it's a lot of miscommunication, and the word around Allen Park this week has been back to basics. That's what the Lions want to do. They want to Dan Campbell on Sunday night said he felt maybe he put a little bit too much on the plate of these rookies that they have in the middle of the offensive line, and they're going to dial things back a little bit. It's going to be back to basic, meat and potatoes, as Campbell said today. That's really where the sticking point was. There was bad communication. You got Tate Ratledge going up against Micah Parsons in this first game of his entire career, and of course Micah beat him. I mean, what would you expect, right?
Yeah.
It's Micah Parsons, and there was also a trouble with the silent count. It was very loud in Lambeau, and these rookies, Mahogany, who I know he's in his second year, but he's essentially a rookie. He only played 2-3 games last year, and then Ratledge as well. They were just having trouble with the silent count, and miscommunication was happening, and guys couldn't hear calls or couldn't hear the kills that were coming in. And that's where you get situations where Graham Glasgow goes to the right and a guy just walks right in and tackles Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, I think maybe somebody else was supposed to be there. It was probably supposed to be Mahogany or Ratledge. They were supposed to figure something out, and it just didn't happen. And the communication was just off. So simplify it, bring it back. You don't have to go on the road this week in a super loud environment, so you don't have to worry about the silent count. You can go out and do your work. And as Campbell mentioned earlier this week, it's all about developing how you work together over time. And eventually, like he said, Sewell and Decker, those guys can just figure each other out without having to say anything. And eventually the Lions will get to that point when they have more time on the field with each other.
So then going into Sunday, Lions, Bears, you have a Bears team that looked tremendous for a quarter and a half and then looked like the Bears once again in the second half. And really same thing with the Bears defense. I mean, J.J. McCarthy, he really turned it on there in the second half. And then going up against a Lions offense that struggled, how much is the pressure on this group to really come out and have a 25, 30-point week, especially with Ben Johnson on the other sideline, and you have the headlines now, and you have the pressure on Morton. How much now is this group feeling the pressure to go out and make sure they put up a good performance this week, especially against a Bears defense that did not look good in the second half on Monday?
Yeah, I'm sure there's an immense amount of pressure. I don't know how much of that comes from anyone that really matters per se. I mean, the fans obviously matter, the reporters, guys like you and me. What we think matters to a point, obviously, but we don't have any control over Dan's job or anything like that. So I know that the Lions want to come out and win. Dan Campbell said today that he anticipates that the Lions will be better in this game. So you just got to go from there and just go out and make it happen. Go back to basics, the meat and potatoes, as he said. Get things the way that you're good at, and run the ball to set up the pass and be balanced. And that's really what this team needs to do. If they can't do it and they start 0-2, that's not great, because you got the Baltimore Ravens next week, and things do not get any easier from here. So you absolutely have to put a win on the board in this game. But I don't know how much pressure they'd be under in terms of their seats getting hot.
Yeah. And then, on the other side, you mentioned it already. The defense found a rhythm at some point in this game. Terrion Arnold didn't play great, but then you find out that he was hurt, when he was in the game and really couldn't get his hands up. Aiden Hutchinson didn't do much, but he was double teamed the whole game. Felt like this one really turned around with the Anzalone dropped interception, then the Brian Branch called back pick six, and then things took a turn for the worse. But what did you see out of the defense on Sunday? Hutchinson now, it's been so talked about him being, double teamed, and other guys need to make sure they're stepping up here. It can't just be him.
Yeah, I thought the really interesting thing about this Packers game plan was it was almost designed specifically to stop Aiden Hutchinson, to the point where the Packers really didn't drop back for many passes. They only had 23 dropbacks in this entire game and only 6 in the second half, where the Lions defense started to be better, started to have pressure. That's where that Anzalone almost interception happens and where the Brian Branch pick six gets called back, they were starting to get pressure. Things were starting to go the Lions defense way. And that's why the Packers really started to back up and be a little bit more conservative with the way that they played, a little more run heavy. Defensively, I think the Lions, obviously this wasn't the best game that they ever played, but they were much better in this game in the second half, and they were able to keep points off the board outside of the one time where the Packers essentially started in the Lions territory and almost in the red zone off of Jack Fox punting out of the end zone. But I think that the Lions defense is going to be fine. I don't think there's any reason to freak out. I think what you need to see is some of these guys winning their one-on-ones, as Dan Campbell has mentioned multiple times this week. When Marcus Davenport gets a chance, he needs to get back there. When Hutchinson's getting double teamed, well, then Tyleik Williams or DJ Reader need to make something happen in the middle, or whoever's out there at that time. Luckily, Terrion Arnold is at practice today, so it looks like maybe there's a chance he plays on Sunday. Getting hurt on the second play of the game, I mean, that just was not good for him, and you saw it really affected. He was not able to catch up with players. He wasn't able to be his normal, somewhat speedy self, and the Packers knew it. They burnt him. The 4 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown he allowed in the rest of that first half. So it was good to get him out of there in that moment. But hopefully he comes back healthy, ready to go on Sunday, and the Lions defense should be doing a lot better in this game.
All right, let's talk about Ben Johnson. How much is Sunday's game going to be chess? Because, is there a lot of overthinking going on? Because Ben Johnson knows the Lions defense. He knows how the Lions offense likes to operate to a certain extent. Obviously, 2 new coordinators. But on the flip side, the Lions know how Johnson likes to operate. And obviously, Caleb Williams and those playmakers, much different than the Lions playmakers. But they all kind of know each other and how everybody likes to operate. How much overthinking, chess is there going on Sunday compared to, any other game week?
Yeah, I think it's certainly going to be a chess game. And I think the really important point to all of this is Ben Johnson is a great play caller, but this is his second game as a head coach.
Yeah.
It's not like he's 2 years into this job or anything like that. He still has to figure a lot of stuff out. And we saw that against the Vikings when, especially late, the way that they kicked it at the end of the game. Time management was a problem for them. So there's some issues that Ben Johnson still needs to figure out. Campbell was asked about trick plays today and whether or not he's concerned about Ben Johnson pulling some of those out. We didn't see anything from Johnson
Right.
week 1 that was out of the norm. I don't think we'll see it this week. I think they're still trying to figure out their offense. That's the big thing that everybody has to realize is that the Bears offense with Ben Johnson has been together for about a month and a half. Mm-hmm. And they don't have everything figured out already. So I think there's going to be some growing pains for them that you may see on the field. And maybe later on in January when they play in Week 18, you'll see a different Bears team. But I think the Lions have kind of the upper hand in this one just because they've been together longer. And all these guys have been together longer. And John Morton was at least here in 2022 and helped install the offense as we know it now. But yeah, I think Ben might pull out some stuff. And I'm sure Dan has some ideas on how he can one-up Ben. There will be some chess moves. This will be somewhat of a war, but I just feel as though the Lions are a little bit more equipped just because they have a little bit more experience.
What's the key for the Lions defense to be successful against Caleb Williams? Going back to last year, I mean, they were pretty solid against dual threat quarterbacks. They were pretty solid against the Bears, except for that second half on Thanksgiving. What's the key to shutting that offense down, very similar to what the Vikings were able to do in the second half on Monday night?
You have to get pressure on Williams. And Williams has demonstrated in his year and in a game in Chicago that he is a player that can be erratic. He can get away from pressure. He can do all kinds of things, but we see plenty of times where Williams will throw some crazy passes that have no business being thrown just in order to get rid of the ball and not take a sack. And so get pressure on him. Make sure he doesn't get super mobile on you to where he can run for first downs, and don't leave lanes open for him. You got to spy him as much as you can. And I think if you're able to get pressure and keep him from running, then you have yourself a win.
Sunday, the headlines are there already. It's the home opener. Ben Johnson can't afford to start 0-2, but it feels like Sunday's game, deep down, is much more about the Lions than it is the Lions versus the Bears, the Lions versus Ben Johnson. How is this group going to come out facing a little bit of adversity here? Why is the sky not falling for you? Why do you think headed into year 2, we can still have confidence that this is a group that is capable still of making noise this season?
Yeah, I think it's really pretty basic stuff. This is just one game. It's as simple as that. This is the first game of the year. And if you look around the league, it's not like everybody had a great day. I think other than Indianapolis, most teams kind of struggled in their week 1 game. And you just look at Kansas City. They didn't have the best game. They wound up losing. Philly, they did beat the Eagles, but it wasn't an easy game by any means. I think the Eagles were probably 2-3 CeeDee Lamb drops away from losing that thing. It's just this is just how the NFL is. You can't make a judgment off the first week of the season because we don't know who these teams are. We really just don't. And guys are coming out flat because they haven't played since January or February or December in some cases. So it just needs time to grow. And I think week 2, you see a much better Lions team. And I just think that all the problems against this Packers team were super easily fixable. Get takeaways, make sure you're better in the red zone, make sure you're better at communicating so you don't have a bunch of missed assignments. You do those 3 things and you are already a much better team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, 0-1's ugly, just looking at 0-1. If this had happened in week 3, week 4, it's probably less of a huge deal. But, people forget, too, they were 1-1 last year. They played not great against the Buccaneers in week 2, and then they just went on a torrid stretch. And I don't think too many people would have thought they would have went on after they dropped that game to Tampa. So, yes, the sky is not falling here. And Ford Field's going to be rocking. It's going to be rocking because it's the home opener. They haven't been home since the Commanders game. Of course, they're going to want to give Ben Johnson everything he can handle now on the visiting sideline. All right, so how do you see this game playing out on Sunday? How do you see the Lions hopefully bouncing back here? And what's your score prediction here for another NFC North showdown?
Yeah, I think it's going to be raucous. As you mentioned, I think there's going to be a significant amount of booing for Ben Johnson. Everybody loved that guy, and we're okay with him leaving. But Chicago, man, they did not want that. That's for sure. So there's going to be a lot of booing. And I think that there is going to be a fun game ahead of us, and a kind of a chess game, as you mentioned. But at the end of the day, I think the Lions going back to basics, making things a little bit more simplified, having their offense I think it's going to have a much better day. I think defensively, they were already starting to show that they could be better. I'm going to go with the Lions winning this one 28-17.
All right, Mike, we're going to catch up with you after the game on Sunday, and I know the vibes are going to be better. I know it. I feel good about it, but hopefully we'll have good things to talk about on Sunday afternoon. But Mike Payton, A to Z Sports, you can catch all of his good coverage there leading up to Sunday's Lions-Bears game, 1 p.m. kick. But for now, that's going to do it for the Lions game plan. Mike, appreciate it per usual, and we'll talk on Sunday, and we'll talk next week headed into week 3 against the Ravens.